Hello friends, it's Shelley from Koala Knits and Knacks. I'm so glad that you're here with me. In this tutorial, we're going to make these beautiful Valentine bears. Now, of course, you can give them as gifts on occasions it is not Valentine's. They're beautiful for any time of the year. And we're going to use Loops and Threads Sweet Snuggles Lite yarn. I'm going to put all the particulars in the description box below. This is a 6 super bulky yarn. You can go ahead and use whatever yarn you prefer to have. And now I will tell you right from the beginning that when we're sewing our bears up, this yarn snaps very easily. When it's all knit together, it's nice and just very, very strong. But you're going to want to grab some worsted weight yarn in the same colors, and we're going to close our ends using that. And I'll show you all of that in the video. But use your favorite super bulky 6 yarn or 2 strands of worsted weight yarn for this project. I'm using my 24 peg loom and my 12 peg loom as well. The pink and the red hearts are made with big twist yarn. Again, all the yarn particulars will be in the description box below. I'm so glad you joined me. I hope you enjoy this project. Don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so already. All right, so I have my 24 peg loom and my loom pick, and I've got my yarn of choice, which is Bernat blanket yarn, and I'm going to put a slip knot onto that yarn, place it on my anchor peg, tighten that just a little bit here, and then I'm going to put that tail in between peg 24 and peg 1, just like that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do the drawstring cast on. So to do that, we're going to go behind peg 1, in front of peg 2, behind peg 3, in front of 4, and all the way around, just like that, weaving in and out, behind and in front. Don't put any tight tension on this. You just want it to be loosely going around those pegs until we get to peg 24. It should be in front of peg 24. Now, generally, when you have an even number of pegs, you're going to go behind peg 1 to do the drawstring cast on and lay this across here. I'm going to go, and then if you have an odd number, you will go in front like that. But even though we have an even number of pegs, I'm still going to go across because of the way I'm going to do my first row of stitches. Okay, so we're going to go across. So I just am pointing that out in case you're saying, no, Shelley, go behind. And we're going to go around. In my opinion, it doesn't make that much of a difference either way. It's just when I was learning this stitch long time ago, that's what stuck in my head because that's where I heard it first. Okay, how I heard it first. So we're going to wrap that all the way around, and I've got it tucked in between peg 24 and peg 1. And we're going to start by knitting off the bottom loop over the top loop. And this is where the reason why you put it behind, because now it's going to be a little bit tricky. You don't want this to flop over. So I'm going to just put my finger over top of peg 1 while I bring that over. And just keep that yarn positioned over peg 1. If it moves off, just put it back. And you'll see in the next row why we're doing it that way. And then I'm going to knit off every second peg. Now, in creating this pattern, I already made one of these little guys. Well, I've started it anyway, so I'm doing it section by section. And I started with the E-wrap, and I knew it was going to be too open, and you'd be able to see the polar fleece or the fiber fill through it when you stuffed your project. But I thought maybe with this particular yarn it wouldn't be so bad. So I started making it in doing just E-wraps because I prefer the E-wrap. I love the look of it. And I thought, nope, that's too loose, too open, and you'll see the fiber fill. So then what I did is I did a row of E-wrap and then a row of U-wrap, row of E-wrap, row of U-wrap, and I still thought it was too holy. So I thought about it for a while, and I thought, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to try something. And I did try something, and I don't know if it's a stitch that's been out there at all. I have no idea. I've never seen it before actually doing it here, and it was just something that I thought about myself. But it could be a pattern, a stitch that's been around for a long time, and if it is, that's great. You probably already know it, but it's new to me. So here's what we're going to do. This is our cast on row. We do not count it. Now what I'm going to do, generally what we do is if we're doing the E-wrap, is now we're going to E-wrap every peg. So we're going to go behind peg 1, in front and behind, then behind peg 2, in front and behind, 3, in front and behind and around. We're doing that all the way around our loom. Now this isn't the new part yet. I just love the look of how this will turn out, and you'll be seeing it in just a little bit. But we're going to wrap every peg all the way around. Peg 24, there it is. We've got two loops on every peg. And generally what we would do now if we're doing the E-wrap is we would knit off the bottom over the top, the bottom over the top on all of our pegs. But we're not going to do that. We want to have a little bit more bulk in between each of these stitches so that you can't see the fiber fill between them. So what I thought about and came to me, I thought I'm going to do something a little bit different. So now that we have those wrapped, I'm going to push these down. And again, I've never seen this truly and never done it, but it's probably out there. It's probably someone else, you've probably all been doing this for a long time now, but it's new to me. And yeah, and so now what we're gonna do, instead of knitting those off, we're gonna go back around, E-wrap one more time. Now I have 3 loops on all of my pegs. So I'm wrapping. Oops, sorry. To get the tension out of the ball there. I now have 3 loops on every peg. That looks so pretty. I'm going to take my yarn, I'm going to go behind peg 1, in front of peg 2, and in between 2 and 3 and hold it with my fingers. That's my practice for anchoring it while I knit off this first one. And the first one that we knit off is peg 24 because that's where we have our last loop. Instead of doing the normal E-wrap, knit off, we're going to take this bottom loop and we're going to go over the second, over the first, and over the top of the peg, leaving 2 loops on your peg. Take the bottom one, and you can drop this now because it's been anchored, so we're good. Now you're going to take the bottom one, you're going to go over the middle one, over the top one, over the peg. And this is just giving us a real nice tightness in between all of our stitches, and I just love how it looks. And knit the bottom, over the top 2, and over the peg. You have 2 loops left on your peg, and that will be for every row. And keep going. Don't pull this too tight because the little string that is in there underneath all this fuzzy stuff is not that wide. And so if you pull too tight, you could risk breaking it. So don't do a really tight cast on or E-wrap when you're doing this. Just make it nice and just a nice even tension. And we're gonna knit off and knit off. Just like that. We have 2 loops left on our on each peg. And that's how it's going to be after every row. And I'm going to release my anchor peg. And now we're going to mark off on our tally that we've done one row. After every row, you're going to take your loom pick and you're going to put it between peg 24 and 23, and you're going to grab the yarn that's in between there, and you're going to pull it behind peg 24 towards peg 1. And you're going to then not have a gap in here like we normally have a wider column in between peg 1 and 24 than we do the other pegs. We're going to always take that and just move it around closer to peg 1 after every row. Now we're going to E-wrap again. We have 2 loops on our pegs. This is 3 now. We're going to E-wrap all the way around. Now I've got a little bit of tension on there. I don't want it loose. It's not tight, but it's not loose. I'm giving it a little bit of tension as I pass it through. It's going to go behind peg 1, in front of 2, in between 2 and 3. I'm going to hold it with my fingers. We're going to then take off the bottom loop over the top 2 loops. Bottom loop over the top 2 loops. I'm going to show you what this looks like in just 1 second on another piece that I did. So if you've seen this done this way before, tell me in the comments what the name of the stitch is. I would like to know. Otherwise, I'm going to call it a double loop E-wrap, I think, is what I'm going to call it. And maybe that is what it's called because it's common sense, actually. But you let me know, and we'll see. But this is what I just came up with as I was thinking. I thought I've got to have a little bit more fabric in between here, a little bit more bulk so that you don't see, there's no opening. And I'll show you what I did. I'm going to mark off 2 on my counter. Here it is. This is the same yarn. I can pull this apart. I do not see the fiber fill in there, and this is 1 layer. Okay, so that is what it comes in. I think it almost like the stitches look almost like a herringbone now, in a like a funny kind of way. It's just how I see it, but I think it's absolutely beautiful. And so whoever designed that double stitch, if somebody did, that was awesome. If not, then I'm glad I'm showing you something new that you might like as well. Marked off row 2. I'm gonna push these down. Just like that. And you're going to E-wrap again, and you're going to do this whole thing over and over and over again for 40 rows. Doesn't take that long. Put your favorite program on, listen to some good music, whatever it is that you want to do, listen to an audiobook, and go for it. And you will have your 40 rows done in no time. So this is the last time I'll show you because I want to show you the join between the 2. So in between peg 1 and 2, in front of 2, in between 2 and 3, hold it with my fingers. I'm going to knit off. I'm going to pull that like this when I'm done. When I'm done this row, I'm just showing you now, but when I'm done this row, I'm going to put this in between and I'm going to pull it towards peg 1. Okay? You can do it at the beginning or at the end of the row, doesn't matter. But I'm going to set you free now. You're going to go ahead. You're going to do 40 rows of double E-wrap. That's what I'm calling double loop E-wrap. That's what I'm calling it. And when you get 40 rows done, I'll see you back. It's fun. It's not going to take you long at all. Oops. Make sure you don't, by mistake, grab the second loop. If you're new, before I let you go, I just want to say that it doesn't matter if you scoop up from the bottom and go up or if you go to the top. In between those 2 and scoop it down and go like this. Whichever way works best for you, you can do. I like to scoop from underneath, not from on top, but the look will still be the same. I go underneath. But either way, you be you and find what works best for you. So now, what I would have done is I take this and I just move it over. Again, you can do it at the beginning or at the end, doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that after every row, you're always moving this stitch closer to peg 1. All right, push these down, mark off on your tally sheet or your counter, 3 rows done, keep going till you have 40 rows done, and I'll see you back. Have fun, friends. All right, so I have done all 40 rows. You can see it's looking great. Loving it. No gaps. It's just beautiful. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our yarn tail. We're going to wrap it around our loom. I've already cut mine off, but you're going to wrap it around 2 times to get a good length. You're going to cut it off. Then we're going to pop this onto our needle. And we're going to remove our stitches with a drawstring cast off. Now you can, well, actually that's not what we're going to do. We're going to do that after we do the next, another step first, but use your needle to take it off on the drawstring this time. Sometimes you can use your hook and you hook it under and pull it through, but then this metal part rubs against this yarn tail and eventually it's going to strip it, and by the time you get around to the other end, you've got nothing left to work with. So use a needle for doing the drawstring cast off if you're using this yarn. But now we have 2 loops on. We just finished our 40th row and we have 2 loops left on our pegs. We're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the bottom one, put it over the top one. Now we have 1. Take the bottom one, put it over the top. We have 1. Do this all the way around, and then we'll do our drawstring cast off. Almost forgot about this part. But as soon as you go to do your next step, you realize that you got 2 loops there, and well, we'll take care of it. So here we go, almost to the end. And now we have 1 loop on each peg. Here's where you're going to just push them down a little bit. Don't push them down too far. Just push them a little bit so you can get your needle at the top there to go down. Or you can go under the stitch and come up. Doesn't really matter. I'll show you here. But we're going to take our needle. We're going to come in behind peg 24, and then I'm going to just go up like that. Or you can go down like this, whichever way you prefer. I think the last one I did, I went from up to down, but I'm going to do down to up on this one. And you bring through. So what I was saying about your loom pick is sometimes when I do the drawstring, oh my goodness, you guys. When I do the drawstring cast off, I will put my loom pick underneath like that. I will draw this up into a loop, and then I'll just keep pulling and it'll all come through. But that strips. This is such delicate kind of yarn. When your pieces together, you don't get fuzzies everywhere, but if you were to use your pick and pull it through, and by the time you got to the end of your work, you'd have a lot of this blue stuff stripped off your little tiny cord that's underneath. Okay, so use your needle for this one and pull it nice and slowly. And then bring it back to the front. And when I get 6 or 7 needles worked, then I take off a few from the beginning. And again. Now I'm gonna just release some of these. I'll take off peg 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and I'll leave 1 on. And I'll do a few more just from going underneath and up, under and up, under and up, all the way around. And again, when you get 5 or 6, then release them. Finish that all the way around, remove your project, and I'll see you when you're done. All right, there we go. And as you already know, this yarn strips really, really very easily. Like you can hardly touch it and it comes off. But the reason why I didn't do the drawstring cast on the bottom here is because we would have to pull all these little loops all the way around to tighten it. And by the time you get around, and that's why I always do a project. I make one and design it, and then I do it with you, because then I can go through all the glitches. But I did that on that green one that I showed you. I did the drawstring cast on the bottom, and then as I pulled it, these strands were shedding and breaking, and so I had to just do it over again, because it just wasn't nice. And so that's why we did the E-wrap cast on like we did here. But then if we take this tail here, it'll be fine to do the closure this way. And we're going to close the bottom first, because we're going to use safety eyes, and we'll need to get into the top to do that. All right, so I'm going to put that little strand on there, and then in these little loops here, you can see all these little loops at the bottom. You're just going to go in and out, in and out, and pull through. Do a few at a time, all the way around, taking the loops that are closest to you. These ones will be caught on the inside. And you're going to go all the way around, picking up about 3 or 4 at a time, and then gently pulling through. We are only going to use this yarn for the drawstring on the bottom here, and then to just lightly pull it at the top when we get to that place, and then we're going to switch and use regular worsted weight yarn, because it's too much of a risk to break this. Okay, so we're going to, I mean, there's not a lot of other places we need to use it, but I'll show you as we go. But I'm picking those very back loops, and I'm gently pulling. Now, just a side note here, if you're having trouble with this and you're thinking it's stripping and you're scared to do it, right from the very beginning, use worsted weight yarn and then tie off your ends. You can do that, and it'll be absolutely perfect. Probably a wiser idea, actually. And into there, and here, and here. And let's just gently pull that. Because if I pull too tight, I am truly going to snap it. I'm going to leave it at that, and then I'm going to just tie it off, and then we're going to go in there and reinforce it with worsted weight yarn. This is the hardest part of the project, is the pulling tight with this yarn, because it's not good for that. When it's surprising how when it is working together, when you put it together, and the project works up, it's so tight, it doesn't shed, it won't break. I could pull this really tight and it's not going to break at all. But when you're using a thin piece like this, like watch, that didn't take too much effort, and that's what happens. So you got to be very, very careful. So going ahead and using worsted weight yarn to close up the top is also an option that would be a wise one as well. Find one that's closest and match. Now this isn't close, but it's all I have. I don't have a lighter one. I had in the green one, I had almost exact same color. Put it on your needle and go around and reinforce. That's what I'm going to do next. And then tie it off with this one and hide it. So I'm going to take a bit of my worsted weight yarn. Again, this is the most difficult part. And it's not difficult, just finicky, right? Piddly little work. Put that on there. Now that I closed it up just a little bit, now that I got around once, and I told you to be very careful, and I know you were, so I'm pretty confident that you didn't break it. But if you're watching this video before you actually make one, if you watch it through, then you don't have to pull that from the very beginning. You can just attach a piece of yarn like this and go through every stitch and pull it that way if you are more comfortable that way, okay? So now I'm going to smooth this out. I'm going to get under that top row of stitches. And maybe you're using double strand of worsted weight yarn for this entire project, and then you don't even have this problem. Pick up that little loop while I'm there. Get under there. And now I can take these two. And tie them off. And because this yarn is so fuzzy, you don't see it, even if it is a color change, it's totally fine. And I'm going to tie that nice and tight. Oh, I can feel that. It's so much better. And nice and tight. And there we go. Once we have that done, and it looks great, there's a little loop here I have to pull in with my crochet hook, but that's totally fine. We're going to measure this out. It's almost 8 inches, so I'm going to just place my eye where the 4 inch is, right there. And I'm going to take my yarn. I'm going to take a piece of yarn that goes around 1.5 to 2 times. 1.5 is generally enough. Cut that off. We're going to pop that on our needle. And I see where that is. And we're going to work away around a drawstring cord here to separate our body from our head. So that's right in the center there. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up under a row, over a row, under a row, over a row, all the way around. And then once we get around, we're going to just let it sit there, and we're going to fill it with fiber fill, and then we're going to fix the neck again, because these are wide stitches and you'll be able to see them, but I go around a second time and you will see what we do. But go around all the way around. Under and over, under and over, under and over, under and over, under, and come around, and we've got it matched. We're going to just leave these hanging. You can cut them off just a little bit so they're not in your way. Don't cut them too short though, because you might want to go around again. And we're going to just leave it like that. We're going to grab our fiber fill. And we have to fill it so that we know where we want to place the eyes, and then we will take it out a little bit just so that we can get our eyes in there. But I'm going to shove this way down into the bottom. It's so weird because I buy my fiber fill by the box at Michael's, and I just bought another box. This one feels so different than any of the other boxes I've ever bought. I don't know what happened. They're using a different fiber fill. Same name, different fill, because it's not the same. And we're going to shove that into there. And you see, we're getting a nice stuffing here. And you do not see it through. Isn't that like just gorgeous? I just absolutely love it. Now, that is enough. We're going to take our yarn tails here, and we're going to make one a little bit longer than the other, but just by pulling. And that is because you want to use it for sewing again as we go around the second time. But you're going to do a surgical knot, so around once and then around once again. We're going to, once we have this stuffed to the amount that we want it, we're going to then pull on this. And by doing a surgical knot, it doesn't loosen as easily on you. Then I give it a little twist, and then I tie a knot. And there we go. You can see these little bumps and hills and valleys, I call them, when you do it that way. And so what I like to do is I like to take my longest one, put it back on my needle. Once I have this tied the way I want it, I don't want it too tight, but I don't want it too loose. You have to determine yourself how you want your neck to be, but don't tighten it so tight that you look like you're choking the poor thing. And then what we're going to do is, we went under this row before, now we're going to go over it, and then we're going to get underneath. It's a little bit difficult to do, but you can do it. We're going to get underneath where the valleys are, and then we're going to go over the hill. So we were under there before, now we're going to go over, and we're going to go under. You will get like such a nice neck when you do it this way. And under. I'm using metal wool needles here. I'll link them in the description box below. I love them. And over the hills, under the valleys. And if you don't have a color that's close enough, just grab a nice color because you can't see it anyways, okay? And we're going to then take that yarn tail and we're going to tie one more time, and I'll show you what it looks like. And into a firm knot. I'm going to take that, put it back onto my needle, and I'm going to hide my end. Okay, it's no surprise. You're looking at my nails and you can see that they're long. I went and had them done again because my nails, without getting them done, are so brittle and they look so terrible on camera that I treat myself and I do it, but she made them way too long. I can't even work with them. So I'm going back and I'm going to get them like really shortened quite a bit. That's the last time. I mean, they look beautiful, but I'll never get them that long again. I can't even move, to be honest. Now, take a look at our neck. You don't see the hills and the valleys now, you just see a beautiful neck. All the way around. And that is nice and in half. We want to then take our filling. We're going to take a little bit out of there, but we need to know what our head is going to look like when this is cinched, but I'm not going to pull on this for fear of breaking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece of yarn. It's worth the extra effort with this yarn because it really is beautiful. You can see those loops very easily. I'm just going to pick them up. I'm going to just pick them up all the way around so I have that security. And I'll just be honest, your loops might look a little bit different. I already went and put this around. I took an extra piece of this and I was going to put it around the loops just so I can have an extra piece for security before I pulled on it. And I was going to show you that. And then I decided that it wasn't going to work. So I deleted that part of I edited that out of the video here. And So those loops might look a little bit different than your loops, but what you're going to do is you're going to just take this piece of yarn and you're going to loop it around the bottom stitches of your cast on there, and so you have a secure piece here. And then we're going to just tie this one off and hide the end, and we're going to work with these two. There we go. Now we have these two that we can pull tight, and we're going to pull them tight just so that we can get an idea of where we're going to put our eyes, but we're not going to tie them off completely yet. So I'm going to take these two, I'm going to give them a gentle tie. I'm going to grab my safety eyes, and we're going to figure out where we're going to place them. I'm going to take 14mm eyes. Now I will link these in the description box below. However, the last couple times I've tried to find them on Amazon for you, I have not been able to find the exact same ones. So I'll link ones that are close, but they come with little sections that you can choose to use or not use that will give them a color. Sad thing about these ones is that you can only make the 14mm ones pink or no color, because every size has its own color. And it's not varying in colors. It's just one color per size, and I don't like that. So, but this one will work, I think. You can choose to use them or not use them. If you don't use them, then you'll see your color of your yarn through the clear plastic there, which is really nice too. But I think these pink ones will look nice on this particular one. So you just see a nice shimmer of pink. Now, don't worry, I'm going to secure these really, really well. You don't have to use safety eyes. For the green one that I had on the picture at the front, you could see that I just used yarn and did those ones, okay? But for this tutorial purposes, I'm going to show you these eyes. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows in between, and I think that looks good. And that's why you have to stuff your head to figure out where you kind of want them to be. What I do is I take hot glue and I put it into the bowl of this back. I take the stuffing out. Now that I know where I want the eyes to be, I'm going to take the stuffing out. And all I do is I tip it over like this. I get a lot of hot glue on the back of that, and I push it on really, really firmly. The hot glue gun then sticks to this black post. It also sticks to the fabric on the back, the yarn on the back of the eye. So I am pretty confident it's not going to come out. If you still are not confident about that and it bothers you, then use your yarn and make your eyes that way. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to attach my eyes, and I'll be back with you. All right, so once I got my eyes on, you're going to take a piece of worsted weight yarn, and you're going to close it up as much as you can with the yarn that you have, being sure not to break it. But then I put a piece of worsted weight yarn on my needle, and I went underneath the top row of all the stitches there, pulled it tight, and then I reinforced it one more time, tied off a knot, and now we'll hide the knot. I didn't think I needed to put that on camera. It's just tightening up the center. Into there, under the stuffing, out the back. So you can't even see this yarn that you use, but it's just so much better than using the yarn that's project yarn, okay? And there we go. I always push them down just to shape them a little bit better. Now we're going to make the limbs, all 4 legs. You're going to grab your 12 peg loom. Now you can use your 24 if that's what you want to use, because we're going to do a flat panel. You're going to take your yarn. We're going to put a slip knot on it. Pop that on our anchor peg. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work over 8 needles. So that's why it doesn't matter what loom you use. We're going to work over 8 needles. We're going to do E-wrap cast on, going behind and in front and back behind, in front and around, back behind. And we're going to do an E-wrap cast on. You know how to do this already. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got the first part of our cast on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come around again for peg 8, then in between 8 and 7, and come the other direction for an E-wrap. This way and this way, all the way to the beginning. This is our cast on row. Now we're going to knit it off. So I'm going to take the bottom loop over the top loop, and I can let go of my line there. All the way across. And push down. That is our cast on row. Now we're going to begin our actual knitting. We're going to do E-wrap with double loops again on a flat panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around, so behind and to the left, and around, and then in between 1 and 2, and then you're going to E-wrap like normal all the way to the end. I've got 8 pegs wrapped. Now we have to push them down just a little bit because we got to go back. We need to get 3 loops on our pegs. So what I'm going to do, in between peg 8 and 9, I'm going to come around the front in between 8 and 7. Then we're going to go the opposite direction. So I should put this in my left hand. From 8 and 7, we're going to go between 7 and 6. I can't do it left-handed. 7 and 6. And then we're going to E-wrap this direction like we were doing. I just can't use my left hand for stuff like that. All right. And then we're going to knit the bottom over the top 2. Then I can let this go. I'm going to release my anchor peg because it's okay to do that now. And the bottom over the top 2 for all 8 pegs. Row 1 is complete. Mark that off on your tally sheet or on your little counter. Push those down. You have 2 loops remaining on each peg. I'll show you how you do your turns again. We're going to, here's where our yarn tail is coming out. It looks like it's between peg 1 and 2. We're going to go to the left and wrap it around peg 1, go in between 1 and 2, and then we're going to do our E-wraps. All the way to peg 8. Hold that off. Take the bottom loop over the top loop, 2 loops, just like what we've been doing for the rest of our project. This is round a row 2. Let's do 1 more row together. We're going to do 14 rows in total. It looks like it's coming between 7 and 8. I'm going to go back around 8 in between, and then I'm going to do my E-wraps the other direction. Mark off your sheet that you did 2 rows. And then knit off. Bottom over the top 2. Row 3 is done. Continue going for 14 rows. I'll see you when you're finished row 14. Just finishing up row 14. There we go. You should have 2 loops left on every peg. You're going to take the bottom loop over the top. This is after you've done all 14 rows. And 1 more. Push those down just a little bit. Just like that. Now you're going to cut off a piece. You want it to be the length of this and a little bit, because we're going to use it just to sew up the side. Not to sew onto our piece, we'll use worsted weight yarn for that, but to sew up the side, we'll use this piece. So you're going to take this and put this on a needle. Oops, thought that was inside. And we're going to go around to the side of peg 8. I'm going to pull up. Again, it doesn't matter if you go down or up. And then in between, I'm going to take the next one. I'm finding if I take it off the loop, off the peg, and then pull this through, that it's less stress on the actual yarn piece. So I'm going to take it off once my needle's through it. Then I'm going to pull it through, just for this particular yarn. The extra effort we have to take for it, but it's worth it because it's so beautiful when it's done. And one more. I'm going to pull that through. Then I'm going to give this a little bit of a stretch. There's our flat panel. We're going to pull this. Be gentle, but it's not very many stitches to go through, so that's why it's safe to use this. Once we have that pulled tight, we're going to then take it across to this half and just join the two. Now we're going to take a look at these loops that are right here. So when you put your finger in there and you fold it up, you see all these big loops. You see them on this side too. And we're just going to go into that top one and then over. I'm going to go underneath that one. It's a little big, so it'll be a wide opening. So let's just, if you have a really big one like that, go behind it. Pick up something with more substance. There we go. We're going to go through. Then we're going to go down to the next one, go into it, and then up. And then come down to the next one. And sew it down. And the next. And the next. And I'm going to pull that a little bit tighter, just like that. Oops, wrapped around the edge. There we go. And up at the top, I'm just going to grab a thicker section here. There's 2 strands in there. And I'm going to then take it over to this other side and connect my edge just like that. I'm going to tie these 2 off in a knot. I'm going to cut them a little bit shorter because I'm not going to use them to sew them onto my piece. I'm going to tuck them into the inside, just like that. And I'm going to make 3 more. And once you have all 4 made, we will move on. I'll tuck in my strings, my yarn tails here. Get all 4 made and I'll see you back. All right, I have all 4 pieces done, as you had seen before, but I stuffed these 3. I added my line and I'm going to do this one with you. So we're going to take a piece of yarn. And put this on our needle. Grab some fiber fill after we tie this on. So I'm going to just pick one side here. It doesn't matter where. Put it on. And we're going to tie this, leaving a short end on the one side, because we will just tuck that right into our piece. I'm going to grab some fiber fill. And I'm going to push that into my piece. I'll push it in quite firmly, and when it starts, and then when I squeeze it, whatever pops out, that's what I take off. Oops, that landed on the floor. But then I want to measure it against the other ones to make sure that, yeah, that's about right. So then what we're going to do is we've got these big cast on loops here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to that loop that's right underneath that big loop. Like, so here's the big loop. I'm going to just pick the one that's right underneath it. Go to the other side and do the same thing. All I have to do is move it over with my needle, and then I can find it. And pull tight. I'm going to go to this next one. Just grab that edge that's right on the other side of that loop. and pull through. And you can just tuck them in with your hands there if that's easier. You can see that there it is. And there it is. Grab this one. And across. Oops, I'm going to take that one just because. Give that a sew. And one more. Then if you see any areas where you need to fix, you can, but this is going to be sewn again, so you don't have to put too much stress into it. As we sew it against the piece, we're going to go around it, but I want to just get that loop out of the way here. I'll go into there. And then I'm going to just tie off in a knot. And there we go, we're ready to attach our pieces to our body. Let's grab our main body here. If you've got two that are, oh, they're all the same row counts, but I'll save those for the legs. I'll put these two on for the arms. We're going to take whichever one you want for the arm. Here's what I do for the arms. I take my tail and I take it to the middle. And then I'm going to just put a little knot there just so when I pull on it, it's not going to gather in there. So I'm just going to anchor it here with a little knot. And I always start my arms from the middle position because then when I grab the, I'm going to do that one more time. Sorry. There we go. That feels more secure. Then when I decide where I want my arms to go, so I'm going to position my finger top of the head here. Here's the very center, and I'm going to go straight down the side. That's the middle there. I'm going to put my needle in there. I'm going to pick up a section. And then when I pull this through, it's automatically centered where I want it because I have the stitch in the middle of the arm. So then from there, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the edge here, pick up a little bit. I don't like this needle for this type of work, so I'm going to actually change it. Sorry. I like these metal wool needles. That bent one is not good for this particular stitching that we're doing here, so I'm going to transfer it over onto this metal wool needle. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to go into this piece, pick up a bit. When you're using these metal wool needles, don't pull on the needle to tighten the yarn. Hold it down here and actually pull on the yarn, or you'll pull this little plastic thing out eventually. So you want to just take care of them in that way. And so then I'm going to go back into the head right near, or into the neck right near where my last stitch was. I'm going to pick up a little section. Give that a nice tight pull. Then I'm going to go pick up another section of my edge off my arm. Give that a pull. And then from there, I'm going to go one more time into the neck, right beside where I was at before, taking just a little piece. And then I always go down about 1/4 of an inch on the side of the arm. So instead of at the very corner there, I'm going to go down a little bit and I'm going to take a stitch. And when I go back into the neck, I'm going to go into the center. I'm going to put it in on the edge here, but I'm going to come out in the center at the back there. And then when I pull this, it rounds off my shoulder. And you don't have a sharp edge there, you have a rounded edge. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew the same way on this side to the back, and then I'm going to go down about 1/4 of an inch, take it back up to the center, and pull it tight. Then I'm going to just let this hang until I have my second arm on. And if I then look at them and I think they're positioned where I want them to be, I will then knot it off and hide it into my work and cut it off. But I don't do that until I have both arms attached and I'm confident in where they're placed. Okay, so go ahead, add both of your arms. I'll see you back when you're done. I have the arms on, and if yours are sticking out too much, just tack them down on the middle of the arm to the body. I like how mine are sitting, actually. They are out a little bit, but I like how they look, so I'm not going to tack them down, but that's just one idea that you can do. Now we're going to take our other two pieces, take one of those two pieces. We're going to attach the legs. So I'm going to just turn it upside down, and here's where the center is. I'm going to just go from the center front to the center there, and I'm going to place that at an angle. Just like that, but not so close to the center here. I'm going to just move it out just a little bit. I see one row of stitches there, and it's at just an angle, and I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to go into my project, come up on the leg, and pull. Go in, and if you can at all get under the stuffing, that gives you a little bit of extra strength. And we're going to pull. So you can't even see this color of yarn. And I'm going to get under there. See, can't even see it. And I'm going to sew that one on, just so it sits like that. But before you sew the second one on, it's the best thing to actually place it where you want it. Sit them up and see where it looks normal, because you want them both to be centered here. And for me, this one is not going to go exactly straight to the other one. There's about a little space there, 2 rows in between there. So that's how I'm going to, but I'm going to put it at the same angle, and I'm going to sew it on from there. So take note of that before you attach the two sides together. Some of the animals that I have done, I attach actually these corners together, but for this one, they have to be a little ways apart. So double check that on yours and see where it looks the best, and then sew it on. There you go. He's adorable so far, but he needs some ears. So let's work on the ears. Let's set him aside. We're going to take our 12 peg loom. We're going to put a slip knot on our anchor peg. Pop that tail into the back there. And we're going to start with a drawstring cast on behind and in front. I'm going to do this quickly for you because we've done this many times already. Behind and in front, and I'm pushing that down as I go. And I'm going to it's in front of peg 12, but I'm going to stay in front of peg 1. That's just how I prefer to do it. I know I mentioned in the beginning of the video that sometimes you'll see people go behind like that, but I like to keep the stitch height the same, so I always tend to go in the front, no matter if there's odd or even number. And I'm going to go around just like this, all the way around. Just going to hold that in place like that. We're going to knit off every second one. I'm going to just bring this back to where it needs to be, in between 12 and 1. And then we're going to knit off all of our cast on row. Just like that. And now I've got one loop on that peg too. That's why I prefer to do it that way. I don't like to have an empty peg, because then that first row is always a little bit shorter. And so what you're going to do is you're going to E-wrap, but only one time. We're not going to do the double loop E-wrap for the ears. We're going to just wrap one time, knit off, and we're going to E-wrap and knit off 6 rows. Okay, so that's all you're going to do. Knit off just with one loop, or the 2 loops on there, not the 3. We're going to E-wrap and knit off 6 rows. Then we're going to cut a tail, and we're going to do the drawstring cast off just like what we've done on all the other pieces. Make 2 ears, and I'll see you when you have those done. Taking that ear, we're going to just give it a little bit of a stretch. We're going to gently pull to close the top. This was the edge I took off. And then we're going to pop our needle through that center, bring that yarn through, and then we're going to tighten this other end. This is how we're going to do the nose part as well. So I'm not going to demonstrate that with you, exactly what I'm doing here, except for I'm going to give you different row counts and different yarn. But this is how we will assemble it, okay? And then from here, this is what our nose piece would be. it's a round piece like this, but we're going to use different yarn and different row counts. So anyways, I just wanted to tell you this is the where, and then you'll tie this off and you'll trail your yarn to the end here, and I'll show you that part and then we'll sew it on. But as far as making the piece, we'll do exactly what we just did when we get to there, all right? So I'm going to tie this so that the inside comes right up close to the outside. Both layers come right close to each other, just like that. I'm going to cut this one shorter tail off. I'm going to work with this longer one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trail this out to the side. And this is what we'll do with our nose piece too. And we will tie off. That way when we pull on this, see how this needle strips it there? Might have to use that other yarn. It's just so delicate. And we're going to fold this in half. So this is out on the side. We're going to fold this in half. You can see how we've got the shape of an ear. You're going to sew all along the top edge there, just picking up one strand from each side. Pull through and sew it in half, just like that. Do that all the way around and you'll get your ear. All right, so I got them both on. Both done. I'm on my second one, sewing my second one. I just wanted to show you how I placed them. So I finished sewing this one on and then I just attached the corner here, but here's the center. So I've got some space, maybe a finger space in between each ear, and it's centered on the center of the arm there. And note to self, I switched out my needle to the metal needle. This plastic one was very sharp and it was wrecking this yarn tail. This one I'm finding I'm able to use. When you're sewing this on, you're going to grab a piece of the head, get under that stuffing if you can, pull it through, then you're going to go straight across the bottom just like this. Pick up the ear and pull it up through. When you're sewing it on, stretch it up like this a little bit. And so when you're sewing it, just push up just a little bit and get it into a more rounded shape. And I'll see you when I get to here. Well, when I get to the corner here, I'll come back and show you, because I put this on the same way that I do the arms on the side. So sew it on until you get to the point at the bottom here, and see me back. We are at the edge here, and take a look at the difference between this and this. We like this better. So I'm going to go up the side of the ear to about the second stitch. Just like that. It's the same thing we did with the arms. And then you're going to go into where your last stitch was, and I come up into the middle, in the back. And then when I pull, see how that rounded it off? You can go back and rewind that if you like, a couple seconds, and you'll see how it just rewound or rounded that off. And now if I take a look at my bear and I see that they're both placed where they need to be and they look even, then I can tie off both tails in a knot and hide the end. Okay, friends, he's getting so cute. This is what I did. I took this yarn, which I thought was Bernat blanket yarn. I bought it at a secondhand store for $3 for this whole ball, no jacket on it. So I just assumed it was, but I don't think it is, because it's not shedding like the blanket yarn is. If you know what it is, let me know in the comments. But it is a bulky 6 for sure. So you just choose your favorite white yarn or your color of choice for your nose. And if you're using worsted weight yarn, just double strand it. And I did the drawstring cast on and on my 12 peg loom, and knit E-wrapped 4 rows. And I'm going to pop that right into the center there. And then what you do is you just take your needle and you pull out the sides like this, because it's small, so you have to work it into its shape. And I'm going to take this up to the side. I wish the Bernat blanket yarn was like this, because man, this like is pillowy soft and it's not shedding. Maybe I got a bad ball of this. I don't know, but anyways, I'm going to pop that on the center. Looks a little bit wide for now, but as I sew it on, I'm going to kind of squish it in and give it a little bit of volume like that, so that it comes up a little bit. And I'm just going to pick up right close to the edge, come up, You don't want to make lines because you don't want to see them. You want your seams to be hidden. And you just want to make sure it doesn't get caught all around your limbs. And I'm going to just sew it on like that, picking it up. And this bent needle works like a charm for this one, because then you can get in and then the bend picks up the white. Just like that, I'm going to sew it all the way around. Again, make sure you get right close to the edge there. You don't want to see white lines. Tie off. In a knot. Tuck that underneath. Bring it out. Doesn't have to come out the center there. It just happened to be where it exited. And cut that off. There you go. Grab some black yarn on your needle and we will finish the nose. For the nose, I've got some Heartland Black Canyon on there. Well, I think that's what it's called. You'll see it in the description box below. I'll put the name of it. You can use whatever black yarn you have. I'm going to go in the side of the head. Here's where the middle of the nose is, right there. I'm going to come above it because as I work my V, I generally end up as low as that point to try to keep it as a point at the bottom. So I'm going to come up. And we're going to make our V. So come across, go right into the seam there, come across where you want to come out, exactly the same spot on the other side. And you can fix it later if you've not judged it right. And we're going to pull that through, come back down into our point. I always get these yarn tails around the limbs. I'm gonna come up right at the seam there, pull through. And just have it flush with the piece. Don't pull it too tight. And I'm gonna keep going into that point and filling in, filling in, filling in. If this starts to get square, just go down a little bit because you wanna keep it a point. So back in, up at the edge, pull it through. Guide it with your fingernail. It doesn't have to be right close right away. You'll fill that in as you go. But back into the point, come up to the edge. And just keep filling in the nose just like that, back and forth, in nice straight lines. Don't have it crossing and overlapping. And again, as it squares off here, just go down just a very little bit and keep it at a point. And I'll see you when you have that filled in. All right, so when you have it all filled in, oh, I have missed a piece here. Do an assessment. Make sure there's no white showing up here. I'm gonna go back into there, come back down, use my fingernail to guide it where I want it to be. Don't go back and forth and make this an inch thick. Okay? You just want it to be nice and flat, like just a nice even layer. If you make it too thick, it looks goofy. So keep it nice and thin. Now you'll see that my rows here are edgy, like they're crooked. Whenever I put my nose on, the last thing I do is I go and I outline it one more time on the very edge. So I'm gonna go from here, right across to this edge. Well, I can go here back into the middle. Maybe it might be easier. Back into the middle. And I'm outlining this edge just to make it straight. That's an attention to detail thing that you want to do. Look at the difference. You can do the same thing to this one. Go across. Make that row straight. Come back to the center point. Just like that. Now you have a straight edge there. And we're going to make the mouth, which is our easy part here, because here's the end. You don't want to go down to the end. I want to go just up a ways. You want to see some white underneath this part. And I'm going to go underneath, up into my point, pull through, And one more time into the base here, and then out where you went in over here. You only need two strands there. Don't pull too tight. Oh, it's so cute. Then you're going to cut this off, tie a knot. Remember, you don't tie the first knot really tight. You tie it flush with the piece, but you don't pull on it because it'll pull on that. The second one is tight. Then I'm going to put this back on my needle. I'm going to hide it under my work and cut it off. All right, there he is. So cute. Now you can see that I've put the heart on him already, but I'm going to make another one with you for my green bear. This one was made in big twist yarn and deep red. We're going to make one for this little guy. And just let me point out what I did to his eyes. All I did is after I finished the nose, I trailed my yarn up and I did 2 strands across one row at a slant. So it's just two strands there and 2 strands there, and that's all I did for his eyes. I actually think it's very, very cute that way too. We're going to take 2 strands. I'm using big twist yarn again, and this is something pink. Pink Rose, I think it's called. It'll all be in the description box below, but I'm going to add my anchor peg there, and we're going to take our 2 strands and we're going to do a drawstring cast on. Okay, it's in front of that 12th peg. I'm going to keep it going in front of peg 1. Just like what we've been doing. I'm going to just bring that around and anchor it. Then I'm going to bring this back in between where it's supposed to be, between peg 1 and peg 12. We're going to knit off our cast on row. Oops, I got 3 strands taken over. Knit off our cast on row here, a drawstring cast on. Then you're going to E-wrap and knit off 12 rows. All right, push this down. This is no new technique to you. You've done this several times already. E-wrap, just 1 E-wrap round. So you have 2 loops on each peg. Knit off. You're going to do that for 12 rounds. Then you're going to cut off a tail. You're going to do your drawstring cast off. Cut off a fairly, well, no, you don't need too long of a tail actually for this piece, but 12 rows of E-wrap, knit off, drawstring cast off, and I'll see you when you're done. There we go. We have our piece. We're going to cinch it at one end, and I did leave a bit of a tail, of course, because we have to wrap it around for the heart to make the separation for the look of the heart. We're going to pop that on our needle. I'm going to pop that into the center, bring it through. Don't snag the side from the inside. Pull it through. Then you're going to snug up this other side. And then bring that first one that you did right up close to this other one. Put it in half. It's going to be bulky because we did a lot of rows, but we want it to be bulky because I like how it looks on the side here. It looks almost like it's stuffed. It's wide, and that's because we did more rows. But just take a little bit of manipulating here, but we can get it. I'm going to cut this one off. I can't handle working with long tails all the time. And we're going to tie those 2 really tight. And again, you need to hide this tail in your work. This needle, this plastic end is going to pop out on me anytime. I've used this needle to death, and I can tell it's getting worn. And I'm going to just hide that, cut it off. Now we're ready to use the other one. Give your circle a bit of a stretch, help it to get into its rightful shape. If you still have a fatter, wider row there from between peg 12 and 1, put that at the bottom. I think I wrapped this one so fast I forgot to use that hook and move the last peg over. I did it on some, I don't think I did it on all. What we're gonna do is, it's coming out of the middle here. I wanna go around the top, but I wanna go on a row, because if I go in between, then it just doesn't have enough bulk to make it look, just to separate it into like this. So go over top of the row if you can, and then come back into the middle and out. And then we're gonna just hold this kind of as we pull down. See, when you go into the middle, you get a nicer separation, because then you have the 2 rows on either side rather than going in between the stitches. I'm gonna take that over one more time, but don't shut the video off, because we're gonna go lower this time. Once it's over, we're gonna go down. So here's the center. I'm gonna go down a row and come up further down here as well. And then I'm gonna give that a real tight pull, manipulating my sides there, and down one more time, and that's it. We can go in, just grab a section here. I'm holding this piece down really tightly with my finger, my thumbnail, as I do this. Oops, now my yarn, there we go. Pull that knot down with your finger. Now you've got your separation there, but it doesn't look like a heart yet. We have to pull this in. Oh, it's so nice. So you're going to pull this in. So here's my row that's in the center. I'm going to take the 2 rows and even, well, you'll figure out how high up you want to go. But what we're going to do, I'll just give you a visual here, is we're going to sew lines here down to the other side, and then lines or stitches, I guess I should call them. But we're going to bring this out to the side first. So I'm going to trail this underneath. I'm going to come up, grab the very edge of that actual row there. So here's the middle one, and I'm the very edge of this 2 up. And I'm going to come down into the middle of that row below it, and then come across to the middle of that row, that's right across from it, and then up to the edge of the row that's above it. That way I'm getting the same section. So I did this section and now this section that were equal. I'm going to come to the base of that, where my stitch is there. So here's my stitch. I'm going to come to the base, pull this through. It's already made a difference. So you can see we've done one section now. This has moved over a little bit, so just manipulate it. One section, and I'm going to go a little bit further down by going around, get to the base of that stitch that was on this side and to the base of the stitch on that side, and we're going to pull it like that. And that's all there is to making this adorable little heart. Then you're just going to play with it to manipulate it. If you want to do a couple more strands on the side here, you can do that, but I think that it's good just like that. We're going to knot this off. Just going to pick up that yarn tail that's right there, that stitch. Make a knot. And one more. And then I'm going to tuck this right into my work. Pull it to hide that knot. Cut this off. And you're just going to manipulate this just a little bit. You can use the side of your needle if you need to pull these edges out. And I'm going to take one strand. I can just take one of these, they're long enough actually. Pop that back onto my needle. Bring my little guy over. I'm going to grab the side at the top here. Pull my strand through. Then I'm going to just take the side of his hand here. Get a good section there. Pull it through, and I'm going to tie a knot. So I've got it off my needle now and I'm tying a knot. Nice tight knot. Just like that. You can do it one more time just to secure it, make sure it's nice and tight. So I'm going to go back through the arm. Through the edge there. I'm going to tie it one more time. Take my end. Hide it into my work, cut it off, and do it to the other arm. Same thing. So you're going to take this edge here, and you're going to tie it to that arm, and you're going to have a beautiful little heart. And here we have the two of them sitting nicely together. You know, whichever way you choose to do the eyes, they look great both ways. I love them both. And so I did a quick measure on them, and to the top, from the top of the head down to the table there, it's about 8.5 inches. So a little bit taller if you include the ear height in there as well. And they're about 5.5 inches across. So they're a really, really nice size. All right, friends, thanks again for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I can't wait to see the bears that you make. Please post in my Facebook group. And if you're posting in other looming groups, which I hope you do, please share the link so that people can find my channel as well. I'd appreciate your support in that. That would mean a lot to me. All right, so thanks again for joining me. And I hope you have a very blessed day. Take care. See you in the next tutorial.